15 surviving members of the Sewol crew have been indicted 1 month after the sinking. The captain and 3 others are charged with homicide. Prosecutors' application of the charge of homicide out of willful negligence is unprecedented in the indictment of the Sewol crew. And Korea's World Cup soccer team staged a surprise event to mark Teachers' Day. Hello and welcome to News Today on KBS World. It's Friday, May 16th. I'm Luke Clary. Homicide out of willful negligence is the charge for the disgraced captain of the sunken Sewol ferry and 3 other officers on his crew. A total of 15 surviving crew members were indicted yesterday, 1 month after the tragic sinking.
Captain Lee Joon-seok and 14 other crew members of the sunken ferry were indicted yesterday. Among them, the captain, chief mate, second mate, and chief engineer were charged with homicide. When proven guilty, they could be sentenced to death penalty. These sailors were responsible for the ship's operation and safety of passengers, but abandoned ship without taking any evacuation measures, while being aware that hundreds of passengers could die from the inaction. Also, the prosecution said that they did not take any actions to evacuate the passengers, even after they were instructed by the Jindo Vessel Traffic Services to help them flee the ship at 9:25 a.m. on the day of the accident. The prosecutorial investigators determined that countless lives were lost because the crew member told the passengers to stay put in their cabins and left the ship without requesting help, even when there were Coast Guard ships and fishing boats nearby. The prosecution also charged the 4 top sailors with attempted murder, saying that they could have caused the death of 152 out of 172 surviving passengers, who were not sailors or ferry operator employees. The investigation team also charged them with negligence of duty in case they are found not guilty on the murder charge. 11 other surviving sailors were indicted with negligence of duty and violation of the maritime law. Their trials will be held at the Gwangju District Court.
Crew members of the Sewol knew that cabin doors would not open if water flooded the hull. Nevertheless, they ordered passengers to stay put inside their cabins even as they evacuated themselves, leading to homicide charges.
By 9:34 a.m., the ferry was already leaning at a 52-degree angle. The sailors were quickly rushing out of the ship when the second deck had hit the sea surface. That's when the water started to flood the hull. The crew members were well aware that the cabin doors cannot be opened when the water floods the ship because of the water pressure. All the doors in the Sewol ferry are opened by pushing out from inside the rooms. There were hundreds of students waiting in their cabins at the time. But the crew did not make any evacuation announcements, nor did they make any attempts to rescue the passengers. Worse yet, the crew did not tell the truth when they were communicating with the Jindo Vessel Traffic Service. But at the same time of the call, 2 first mates had gone back to their cabins to retrieve their mobile phones. The crew members had enough time and plenty of opportunities to try to save the passengers. This is why the investigators have charged them with homicide with willful negligence. They signaled a Coast Guard patrol ship to come and rescue them, even used a fire hose to save themselves, but they did not help the passengers. The captain did not request help from the Coast Guard for the passengers even after he was rescued, and another sailor is seen making a phone call instead of asking the responders to save those aboard the ferry. Photos of their actions were presented as evidence backing the homicide charge.
The application of the charge of homicide out of willful negligence is unprecedented. Prosecutors are pulling out all the stops to apply the strictest punishment available in the Sewol ferry case.
Prosecutors have indicted 4 Sewol ferry crew members, including the captain, with homicide out of willful negligence. Willful means that the crew was aware of the possibility of passengers' death and let the tragedy happen. Here, negligence refers that the crew failed to do anything to save the drowning passengers. Instances of homicide out of willful negligence are hard to find in Korea because proving this kind of felony is quite difficult. Only one case has been recognized by domestic courts so far, although this charge was applied to the captain of Namyang Ferry, which sank in 1970, killing 326 passengers. He was later found not guilty.
부작이 아무것도 구조하지 아니한 행위와 사망 결과에 대한 인과관계, 이 부분 한 부분을 검찰이 명백하게 입증을 해야 될.
But the prosecutors decided to indict the Sewol crew of homicide out of willful negligence in a bid to punish them as harshly as possible. The highest degree of punishment for murder is death penalty. The punishment for hit and run on the sea is a life sentence, while for abandonment resulting in death it is 45 years in prison. The prosecutors have also included the charges of hit and run on the sea and abandonment resulting in death in the petition of appeal in case of the Sewol crew is found not guilty of homicide. The prosecutors say the move was inevitable in order to prevent the crew from avoiding punishment if they were found not guilty due to a different interpretation of law.
Financial authorities have found that Yoo Byung-un's subsidiaries received illegal loans and performed illegal transactions through credit unions.
The amount of loans received by Yoo Byung-un's 46 subsidiaries from 41 financial institutions surpasses $320 million. 90 people, including Yoo's children and the executives of his subsidiaries, also received $37 million in loans. The financial authorities have confirmed that some of the loans were illegal. They either exceeded the limits of the subsidiaries' working funds or were provided without a proper background check regarding their purpose of use. One of the banks lent around $680,000 to a bogus store because it never actually bothered to check if the store actually exists. Also, Yoo and his children withdrew over $6 million from a credit union for over 7 years. The Financial Supervisory Service believes the transactions were illegal.
유병은의 사진 작품을 고가에 매입한 정황도 포착되었습니다. 신협을 사금고한 그런 사례로 볼 수 있겠습니다.
The Financial Supervisory Service has also discovered that Yoo's subsidiaries performed 16 illegal foreign currency transactions, resulting in a leak of $43 million overseas. Of that, $7.6 million can't be retrieved now because the money had already been transferred to a third party.
위법 부당한 대출이나 당초 목적과 달리 사용된 대출금에 대해서는 회수 조치도 하도록 하겠습니다.
The Financial Supervisory Service has found that Cheonghae-jin Marine had 70 subsidiaries instead of the 50 as initially believed, and that their workforce amounted to some 180 people.
The sinking of the Sewol was a total disaster in every step of the way, from the sinking itself to the search and rescue efforts and government response. We take a look back on the past month, which has been marked by shock, grief, and anger.
It was just another peaceful Wednesday morning. The gigantic Sewol ferry carrying 476 passengers, including students from Daenan High School, went underwater. Brief expectations that most on board would be rescued turned out to be false. Inaccurate information, miscommunication, and confusion repeated on and on.
왜 구조 따르냐고 구조 중을.
그것이 집계가 추가돼 중복 계산된 걸로 이렇게.
When there were hope of saving lives in the early stage, rescue efforts went so slow. It took 2 days for rescue workers to enter the ferry, but by then, all they found were dead bodies. Utter grief changed to disappointment in the government and eventually enragement. Prime Minister Chung Won finally stepped down. Authorities also launched investigations into the captain and crew members who hurried to save their own lives and abandon the passengers, as well as the shipping company and actual owner of the ferry. The Korean public, who hoped for some miraculous news, grieved together with the families of the victims.
이런 참사가 생겨서 저희는 정말 어른으로서 너무너무 부끄럽습니다, 정말.
On Parents' Day, yellow ribbons took the place of carnations for parents who lost their children. A tumultuous 1 month for the Republic of Korea has passed. But there are still 20 missing victims remaining in the cold sea.
The past month of covering the ferry disaster has also been a challenge for Korean media. News outlets failed to point out problems in the initial rescue operation and as a result delivered inaccurate reports. That includes us at KBS. We have criticism to answer to as well.
A letter came from a Danwon High School student who says that after watching how the ferry accident was covered by the media, his or her dream of becoming a journalist disappeared.
대한민국의 직업병에 걸린 기자분들께
The various media outlets were more competitive in the coverage itself than sympathizing with the victims' families. They would report whatever announcements the government made, such as 500 rescue workers and all available equipment were mobilized.
인원수입 555명, 169척으로 우리 아이들을 구출하고 있다고 거짓말을 했지.
Criticism was harsher on public broadcaster KBS, considering its position as a main broadcaster for the disaster coverage. On the second day of the disaster, President Park Geun-hye visited Jindo Island. KBS's 9 o'clock news did not raise any issues with the rescue operation. When a point was raised, saying that the applause was louder than the announcement, KBS explained that it wasn't intentional and that on-site recording was of poor quality. The president's apology was covered, but the news conference held by the bereaved families saying that the apology was unacceptable was not mentioned in the 9 o'clock news. KBS editor-in-chief Kim Si-gon, who has now resigned, made remarks that were viewed controversial, and this drew strong protest from the families. In a news conference announcing his resignation, Kim said that KBS President Gil Hwan-young interfered with the reporting, but this fact was also not delivered in the broadcaster's news that day.
근데 보도가 이렇게 나올 때에는 정말 심한 배신감을 느끼는 거고요. 아무리 이야기해도 어느 누구도 들어주지도 않고 알려지지도 않고.
It's time to reflect whether media reports, including those of KBS, were another case of disaster themselves.
6 masked robbers held up a plastic surgery clinic in the upscale Gangnam district of Seoul. The police have captured 4 and are on the lookout for the rest of the gang.
2 men in black suits rushed towards something. The 2 men are part of the 6-member gang who held up a plastic surgery clinic in Seoul's Gangnam district. They threatened the surgeon and 5 employees with weapons and tied them up before demanding money. But the 48-year-old surgeon untied his hands while the robbers' attention was elsewhere, then escaped by jumping down from a second-floor window.
원장님 괜찮으시냐고 막 계속 소리 같은 거 지르시면서 약간 좀 울먹이셨고 그 빨간색 손에 이렇게 손에 자국 같은 게 있었어요. 그 결박되어 있었다는.
3 of the gang, including a 23-year-old man surnamed Ko, was captured near the Seoul Express bus terminal at around 11 p.m. and 1 turned himself in. The police is questioning them for motive and looking for their 2 accomplices still on the run.
Korea's World Cup soccer team staged a surprise event yesterday to mark Teachers' Day. The team demonstrated its coach's priority on strong teamwork.
This surprise event took place shortly before Team Korea's breakfast was over. The team presented its coach, Moon Young-bo, with gifts and flowers. They presented these tokens of their appreciation in light of Teachers' Day.
개인적으로 그 이벤트를 썩 좋아하지는 않았는데 처음 스승의 날이 되어가지고 오늘 선물을 받았는데 개인적으로 아주 큰 영광으로 생각하고 있습니다.
The team also had a surprise for its foreign coach.
It's very honored to get the flowers from the players, and then you can see we have the Korean team, and it's one team, and also we were very proud, like coaches, that we get the flowers.
The surprise event demonstrated the team's relentless pursuit of strong teamwork, which is the #1 priority for its coach. Team Korea has been training for the upcoming World Cup for 4 days now. Next week, more than 90% of the players will come together, and the team will begin its ground training in earnest. The upcoming game with Ghana, which will be the final match for Team Korea ahead of the World Cup, is slated for June 10th. Meanwhile, the official commemorative coin for the Brazil World Cup has been released to the delight of soccer fans.
Wine and cheese are a perfect pair, and Koreans are catching on. With the varieties of cheese available in the country growing larger than ever, the average consumer could use a little guidance. We're here to help. When sliced cheese was first introduced in Korea in the early 1980s, it was an instant hit. A decade later, the spotlight was on mozzarella cheese used in pizza, a popular dish in Korea at the time. Nowadays, there are even stores specializing exclusively in cheese. Cheese is available in all forms and flavors these days. This store alone sells a great variety of cheese products. Cheese is a versatile cooking ingredient. You can use it in sandwiches, lasagna, and salads. Here are some ways Koreans are enjoying their cheese. The following 4 types are the most popular throughout Korea. We'll start with the square-shaped cheddar cheese. It goes well with bread or can be eaten as is. The next one is mozzarella cheese, which is known for its ability to stretch. It's mostly used in pizza and goes well with tomatoes. Gorgonzola cheese, which can be recognized for the bluish spots, can smell and taste a little strong at first, but it's a perfect side dish with wine. And camembert cheese, which is coated with white spots, is famous for its soft feel and sweet taste. It's rich in folic acid, which makes it ideal for pregnant women. Imsil village in North Jeolla province is the cradle of Korean cheese. It first started producing cheese in 1957 at the initiative of a Catholic priest from Belgium who settled there.
이곳은 치즈 배트인데요. 여기에 살균된 원유 10톤이 이 안에 들어갑니다. 그러면 여기에 젖산균과 응고 효소를 넣어가지고 단백질을 응고시키는 그런 과정입니다.
When milk coagulates, the yellowish whey is separated. Then the solids are kneaded into a dough and soaked in salt water. Now the cheese is ready. You can eat it right away without fermenting it.
원유 40톤 가지고 작업을 했는데요. 치즈로는 4톤 정도가 나옵니다. 우유의 10분의 1이 치즈로 나온다고 보시면 됩니다.
Imsil has dedicated a great deal of effort into the research and development of cheese. Here's one of its latest products. It's a combination of milk and some purple substance.
아로니아를 이용해서 지금 신제품을 개발 중에 있습니다.
The substance was made with chokeberries, which are known for their excellent cancer-fighting properties. Their health benefits multiply when they're used in cheese. Korean cheese is also made with seaweed such as hijiki and seaweed fulvescens. There's even cheese with chocolate. Imsil Village offers hands-on programs for its visitors. The cheese variety is determined by how it's made. When it's stretched out like so, it's unmistakably mozzarella cheese. Children and their parents can easily make string cheese firsthand.
시중에 파는 것보다 더 담백하고 고소한 것 같아요.
With so many kinds of cheese sold in stores these days, anyone can find the right flavor for themselves to enjoy this healthy food product. Now we'll take a look at the markets, followed by the world weather. That's it for this edition of News Today. We'll see you again on Monday. Have a great weekend.